The greatest battles are often won in silence, not the silence of fear, but the silence of trust. The world demands a response, an answer, an explanation, but the chosen ones know better. They know that when the Lord is their defender, words are unnecessary. Consider how noise rules this world. People argue to prove their worth. They justify, they explain, they retaliate. Yet the ones who truly walk with God have no need for such things. They do not beg for understanding. They do not rush to defend themselves. Instead, they trust. When Israel stood at the edge of the Red Sea, Pharaoh's army thundered behind them. The situation demanded panic, action, desperate defense. But what did God say? Be still and see the salvation of the Lord. Their silence was not surrender to Pharaoh. It was surrender to God. And in that stillness, the sea parted. The chosen ones do not move unless the Lord moves. They do not speak unless the Lord speaks. This is not weakness, but strength. It is the quiet confidence of knowing that God is at work, even when nothing appears to be happening. When Jesus stood before Pilate, falsely accused, he did not argue. He did not demand to be heard. His silence was his victory. He knew the truth did not need defending. He trusted the Father's plan. And 3 days later, the world saw what that trust accomplished. There is power in stillness, power in trusting beyond sight, power in knowing that when the time comes, God will act. And when He does, no voice, no accusation, no opposition will stand. Let the world wait for your response. Let them wonder. And in your silence, let them hear the voice of God. Trust in the Lord is the mark of the chosen ones. It is not a casual belief or a momentary hope, but a deep, unwavering certainty that shapes every action, every decision, and every response. The chosen do not waver when storms arise because their foundation is not built on human strength or understanding. It is built on something far greater, on the one who never fails. The world often mistakes trust for passivity. It sees silence in the face of trouble and assumes weakness. But true trust is not the absence of action. It is the confidence to wait for the right action. It is not standing still out of fear, but standing firm because of faith. In the Bible, we are told that those who trust in the Lord will be like a tree planted by the waters, unshaken by drought, untouched by fear. This is the nature of the chosen ones. While others run, they stand. While others shout, they remain quiet. Not because they do not see the danger, but because they know who holds the outcome. There is something unbreakable about those who have placed their full trust in God. They do not need to seek approval from the world. They do not need to prove their faith through endless words or arguments. Their lives, their peace, their unwavering calm in the face of difficulty is proof enough. The chosen ones have learned that the loudest faith is not always the one that speaks the most, but the one that remains steadfast even in silence. The Bible tells us that when David stood before Goliath, his strength was not in the stones he carried, but in the trust he had in God. Others saw an impossible battle. He saw a victory already won. He did not come with armor, did not rely on human tactics, did not enter a debate with his enemy. He simply trusted. And because he trusted, he triumphed. The world will test this trust. It will shake the foundations of human certainty, push against the limits of patience, and challenge faith with the weight of doubt. But the chosen ones do not rely on sight. They walk by faith, knowing that even when things seem impossible, even when the path is unclear, God is never absent. In the Bible, we are said to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and not lean on our own understanding. This is the defining characteristic of the chosen ones. They do not demand to understand every step before they move. They do not need to see the full picture before they believe. They simply know that if God is leading, they are safe. There is great rest in this kind of trust. The chosen do not carry unnecessary burdens. They do not lose sleep over battles that belong to God. They do not waste time worrying about things beyond their control. They know that if they are in the hands of the Almighty, then nothing, no trial, no opposition, no hardship, can remove them from his care. This trust is not just for moments of crisis, but for everyday life. It is the assurance that whether in stillness or in action, whether in silence or in speech, God is in control. The mark of the chosen ones is not seen in how loudly they declare their faith, but in how deeply they live it. They do not need to chase after recognition, approval, or validation. Their security is found in something unshakable, something eternal, and because of this they trust in the Lord and remain unmovable. Silence is strength, not weakness. The world associates power with noise, with the loudest voice in the room, with the one who demands to be heard. But in the kingdom of God, true strength is found in restraint. The chosen ones do not need to prove their authority with many words. Their confidence is not in their own ability to argue, but in their ability to trust that God will speak on their behalf. In the Bible, we are said to be still and know that He is God. This is not a passive stillness, but an intentional surrender, a quiet assurance that the one who created the heavens and the earth is in control. The world shouts, but the chosen listen. The world fights to be right, but the chosen stand firm in what is already true. Their silence is not a retreat, but a strategy, a posture of faith that allows God to move in ways they cannot. Jesus himself demonstrated this strength in silence. When he stood before Pilate, falsely accused, he did not argue his case. He did not rush to defend himself. He remained quiet, knowing that his silence spoke louder than any defense ever could. In that moment, he displayed a power that shook the foundations of the world, a power that did not need to be explained, only revealed. His enemies mistook his silence for defeat, but it was the very thing that led to victory. The chosen ones understand this truth. They know that every battle does not require their voice. They know that trust in God means stepping back and allowing Him to be the one who answers. In the Bible, we are said that the Lord will fight for us, and we need only to be still. This is the strength of those who trust. They do not react to every provocation. They do not let the noise of the world dictate their peace. Instead, they remain silent when necessary because their silence is not emptiness, it is expectation. It is waiting for God to speak when the time is right. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. The world values quick responses, immediate rebuttals, the need to always have the last word, but the chosen ones move differently. They are slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. Their strength is not in how much they say, but in how much they understand. They know that silence before men often means deeper communion with God. Consider the walls of Jericho. The people of Israel did not bring them down with weapons or arguments. They did not shout until the final moment. They walked in silence, trusting in God's instruction. And when the time came, their voices, once held back in obedience, became the very tool that brought down the enemy's walls. Their silence was not weakness, it was preparation. It was faith in action. The world will try to pull the chosen into unnecessary battles. It will tempt them to respond in anger, to defend themselves when no defense is needed, to engage in debates that do not lead to truth. But the chosen ones know that their strength is not found in proving themselves to people, but in proving their trust in God. In the Bible, we are said that even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent. The ability to hold one's tongue is not cowardice, it is mastery. It is the mark of those who know who they are, and more importantly, whose they are. To stay silent when the world expects a reaction is a display of extraordinary strength. It shows confidence in God's timing, faith in His justice, and peace in His sovereignty. It is not avoidance, it is authority, the quiet kind that cannot be shaken, because it is built on trust in the one who speaks when it truly matters. Faith in God means surrendering the need to defend yourself. The world teaches that strength is found in self-preservation, in fighting for your reputation, in making sure you are always understood and justified. But the chosen ones know that their defense does not rest in their own hands. It rests in God's. They do not live to prove themselves to men. They live to please the one who already knows their hearts. In the Bible, we are said that vengeance belongs to the Lord and He will repay. This is not a call to weakness, but to trust. The chosen ones understand that no attack against them goes unnoticed by heaven. Every false accusation, every betrayal, every misunderstanding, none of it escapes the eyes of the Lord. And because of this, they do not waste their energy trying to correct every false narrative or win the approval of those who do not see the truth. They know that in time, God will vindicate them far better than they ever could. Joseph is a perfect example, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused in Egypt, and thrown into prison. At any moment, he could have fought to justify himself. He could have demanded to be heard, insisted on setting the record straight, but he didn't. He trusted God's plan even when it made no sense. And because he did, the very trials that could have destroyed him became the stepping stones that lifted him to a position of authority, placing him second only to Pharaoh. His defense was never in his own hands, it was always in God's. Jesus also showed this when he was mocked, ridiculed, and led to the cross. He had every right to speak, to justify himself, to silence his accusers with a single word, yet he remained quiet, surrendered not to man's judgment but to God's will. His silence was not helplessness, it was purpose. And in the end, it was through this surrender that the greatest victory was won. The chosen ones understand this paradox. Sometimes the greatest power is in refusing to fight the wrong battles. In the Bible, we are said not to answer a fool according to his folly, lest we become like him. There are moments when silence is wisdom, when choosing not to engage is the highest form of strength. The world thrives on conflict, but the chosen ones are not drawn into every argument, every false accusation, every attempt to provoke a reaction. They know that their name is safest in God's hands, not in their own defense. This does not mean they lack a voice or that they never speak truth. It means they know when to speak and when to stay silent. They understand that some battles are not won with words, but with trust. When others demand an explanation, they are not shaken. When they are misunderstood, they do not panic. Their faith is not in the court of public opinion, but in the justice of God. Daniel, when thrown into the lion's den, did not plead his case. He did not fight back against those who sought his downfall. He simply trusted. And in that trust, God shut the mouths of the lions. His defense was never in his words. It was in his obedience, in his refusal to compromise, in his quiet confidence that God was in control. The world will always tempt the chosen ones to defend themselves, to retaliate, to make sure their side of the story is heard. But those who truly trust God know that their defense is already secure. They are not forgotten. They are not abandoned. And in the right time, in the right way, the truth will always be revealed. God fights for his people. The chosen ones do not have to force their way through life, nor do they need to strive for victories that belong to God alone. Their greatest battles are not won through their own strength, but through trust in the one who goes before them. When God fights for his people, no opposition can stand, no enemy can prevail, and no obstacle can remain unmoved. Chosen ones do not take matters into their own hands, because they know that their deliverance comes from the Lord. Think of Israel standing at the edge of the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army thundered behind them, and the waters blocked their path ahead. Logic would have told them to surrender or to fight with whatever strength they had left. But God had another plan. He did not ask them to battle their way out or to negotiate with their enemies. He asked them to trust, to be still, and to watch him make a way where there was none. And in that stillness the sea parted. Their escape did not come by human effort, but by divine intervention. This is the nature of God's deliverance. When he fights for his people, he does not just remove obstacles. He overturns them. He does not merely protect, he elevates. In the Bible, we are said that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. This does not mean weapons will not be formed. It means they will not succeed. The chosen ones do not live in fear of what comes against them, because they know that anything formed to harm them is powerless in the hands of God. David understood this when he faced Goliath. He did not trust in armor or weapons. He did not put his confidence in human strategy. He walked into battle knowing that the outcome was already decided, not because of his skill, but because the Lord was fighting for him. A single stone in the hands of a man aligned with God is more powerful than an entire army without him. This is the confidence of the chosen ones. When God fights, he does so in ways beyond human understanding. Sometimes he brings victory through miraculous intervention, like shutting the mouths of lions for Daniel, or bringing down the walls of Jericho with nothing but obedience and faith. Other times he fights by working in the hearts of men, turning the plans of the enemy into stepping stones for his people's destiny. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, falsely accused and imprisoned. But in the end, every injustice became a tool for his elevation. What others intended for harm, God used for good. The chosen ones do not waste time fighting battles that belong to God. They do not fear opposition because they know that their defender never sleeps. They do not chase after justice because they trust that God's justice is greater than anything man can provide. In the Bible we are said that if God is for us, who can be against us? This is not a question, it is a declaration. It is the unshakable truth that no force, no enemy, no scheme can ever prevail against those whom God fights for. God's victories are never small. He does not merely protect his people, he establishes them. He does not only bring them through, he causes them to overcome. The chosen ones understand that they do not need to strive, they do not need to force, they do not need to fear. They only need to trust, to be still, and to watch as the Lord fights for them in ways far greater than they could ever imagine. Patience is the weapon of the chosen ones. The world rushes, demands immediate results, and views waiting as weakness. But the chosen know that God's timing is perfect, and his ways are higher than theirs. They do not force doors open or demand answers before their time. They trust, they wait, and they remain steadfast, knowing that what God has promised, he will fulfill. In the Bible we are said that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting is not passive, it is preparation. It is the quiet confidence that God is working even when nothing seems to be happening. The chosen ones understand that God is never late. What looks like delay to man is often divine alignment, making sure every detail is in place for his perfect plan. Abraham had to learn this. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, but years passed and nothing happened. Human reasoning said it was impossible, and impatience led him to take matters into his own hands. But the promise was not in his control, it was in God's. And when the time was right, God's time, not man's, Isaac was born. The chosen ones do not rush God, they do not panic when things seem slow. They trust that what he has spoken will come to pass. Joseph's journey also required patience. He saw a vision of his future, a promise of greatness. But before it was fulfilled, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, imprisoned for years. It would have been easy to believe that the promise had failed, but Joseph did not lose faith. He waited, and when God's moment arrived, the doors of the prison opened, and he was raised to rule over Egypt. Had he forced his way out, had he relied on his own strategy, he would have missed the fullness of God's plan. Waiting is a test of faith. It separates those who trust in God's promises from those who only trust in their own timing. The enemy will always try to convince the chosen ones that waiting means they have been forgotten. He will whisper doubts, stir impatience, and tempt them to move ahead without God. But the chosen ones do not listen to these lies. They stand firm, knowing that in the Bible we are said that the vision is for an appointed time, and though it may seem delayed, it will surely come. Jesus himself walked in patience. He did not rush to prove his identity. He did not force the people to believe in him. He waited, moving only as the Father directed him. Even when his friend Lazarus was sick, he did not run immediately to heal him. He waited. And because of that waiting, what could have been an ordinary healing became a resurrection. God's timing always brings a greater glory than man's urgency. The chosen ones understand that patience is not about doing nothing, it is about doing the right thing at the right time. It is trusting that God is not slow but purposeful. It is resisting the temptation to manipulate situations and instead allowing God to open doors that no man can shut. In the Bible, we are said that through faith and patience we inherit the promises of God. Faith alone believes, but patience walks that belief out until the promise is fulfilled. The world mocks patience, it calls it foolishness, passivity, or weakness. But patience is one of the greatest weapons of the chosen ones. It frustrates the enemy, silences fear, and aligns the heart with God's perfect will. The chosen ones know that what is meant for them will not pass them by. They do not fear delays because they know that every moment of waiting is shaping them, refining them, and positioning them for something greater than they could have achieved on their own. The chosen ones do not walk alone. Though the journey may seem solitary, though the path may feel narrow, they are never abandoned. Their strength is not found in numbers, nor in the approval of men, but in the unshakable presence of God. He goes before them, walks beside them, and covers them from behind. There is no moment when they are unseen, no battle where they are unguarded, no sorrow where they are left comfortless. In the Bible, we are said that He will never leave nor forsake those who trust in Him. This is the confidence of the chosen ones. They are never truly alone. The world does not understand this kind of assurance. It looks at the chosen and sees isolation. It sees those who do not conform, who do not bow to the expectations of men, who do not seek their worth in temporary things. And because of this, it misunderstands them. The chosen are often misjudged, sometimes rejected, even hated for the truth they stand upon. But what the world does not see is the hand of God upon them. In the Bible, we are said that if God is for us, who can be against us? It does not matter who stands in opposition when the one who commands heaven and earth stands in favor. No rejection from man can remove the calling of God. Joseph's brothers threw him into a pit, thinking they had ended his dreams. But what they meant for harm, God turned for good. The betrayal was not the end, it was the beginning. The pit was not his prison, it was his path. The chosen ones do not fear betrayal, do not fear being misunderstood. They know that the one who called them is faithful. They know that the one who called them is faithful. He is their defender, their provider, their guide, even in the wilderness, even in the waiting. He is working all things for their good. There is a reason the chosen ones often find themselves set apart. Not all can walk the road they walk. Not all can carry the weight of the calling. The chosen are refined, tested, purified like gold in fire. The process is not easy, but it is necessary. In the Bible, we are said that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. Every difficulty, every closed door, every season of silence is shaping them for something greater. The waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. Jesus himself walked this path. He was rejected by those he came to save, betrayed by those closest to him, abandoned in his most difficult hour. Yet he was never alone. The Father was with him, guiding him, strengthening him, leading him toward the fulfillment of his purpose. The chosen ones follow this same pattern. They do not need to chase after validation, do not need to explain themselves to those who do not see. Their approval comes from God, and that is enough. This is why they trust, why they stay silent when necessary, why they do not fight battles that belong to the Lord. They know that their path is ordered, their steps are secure, and their future is in the hands of the Almighty. If this message has blessed you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more.